dealing with unexpected incidents, challenges, whatever you want to call it, dealing with those moments, those episodes, well, that's challenging. And it's especially challenging when it's the result of EDS. Now, if you want to know how to deal with those unexpected things popping up, then stay here, especially since it's related to stress. So if you're like, oh, I would like to know a little bit more about what can I do, stay here. If you are someone with hypermobility or EDS, you surely want to stay here. Last week I talked about EDS, hypermobility, and the effect it has on vocal cords. Little did I know that today I was going to do a part 2. Now, as you may hear, my voice isn't the way it should be. And I noticed that there's a difference between talking, like I'm doing right now, and the actual singing. So I can't sing at all. And there's something you can do, which is sort of like an in-between kind of thing, which is humming and resonating. And in order to be able to do this live for you right now, and I have no clue how long it's going to last, I am working with partially resonating and humming as exercises for you, but I'm also working with shorter sentences and actually little stomach bumps. So by letting the air flow, there's less strain on my vocal cords. And one of the ways to do so is actually by pulling in your stomach. And then I mean actually the lower part of your abdomen, so the air can flow alongside your vocal cords. Now again, I didn't realize that it was going to happen. And yes, it happens more often, which is one of the reasons that I usually say don't postpone what you can do right now. But in this case, this has been going on all weekend, so. And the reason for it, and that was kind of unexpected, was related to, I guess, a bunch of things which can cause stress. And it's not necessarily the mental stress, because this weekend I had to go to the hospital for MRI scans. That doesn't stress me out. Well, maybe the fact that it was in the morning and I had to drive for an hour and I had to drive back in the afternoon, unfortunately with some accidents on the road, so traffic jams. And I hadn't had much sleep because I normally sleep during the morning and the first part of the afternoon. But this is for a good cause, so I was like, okay, let's get the scans done. So it helps me to get an overview of what's going on with my vertebrae, my lower back, and also with my left knee. Now, my right knee isn't that fabulous either, but it's my left knee. That's the worst of all. And the doctor said, why don't we just see what the status is? And I said, well, if you're going to do an MRI scan, how about if we also make one or take one of my back? Because that's causing a lot of problems when it comes to walking and also to the knees. So this doctor is a knee specialist. Kind of nice person. I think we're about the same age. And he does know where I'm coming from. So there I went. I did a meditation beforehand, so you might want to write that down. What really helps is if you prepare yourself not by, I need to sleep, that's not going to work. But if you can actually say to yourself, I'm going to be rested, those 2 hours of sleep will be like 10 hours of high quality sleep. And especially if you have someone who can tell you a little story. I let Brendan AI, that's the AI from Brendan Burchard, tell me a little story. Well, actually a long story. I usually let him talk to Bunny, my inner kid. Yes, that rabbit over there. And she, because she's for him like an 8-year-old, somewhere around that age, he tells it in a way that's funny, and I often have to smile. And it helps with falling asleep. Sometimes I just repeat it a few times, and then it's like, okay. And oftentimes I've already fallen asleep before it's even finished. So visualizing that you actually feel really good the next day is going to help you to really have a good night's sleep. And then, of course, there's the part where the waking up is involved. And you want to see that when you wake up, that you feel fully rested and it's easy to wake up. Now, I don't know about you, but if I wouldn't do that, I'm like, oh my God, 2 hours of sleep, really? I need to be able to do it on 2 hours of sleep and then get in the car for an hour and then drive all the way over there. You see what's happening? Whereas if I say I'm fully rested after 2 hours of sleep, they're worth like 10 hours of high quality sleep, and I'm waking up with a smile and I get there on time and feeling really good. That's a whole different story. So I also asked Brendan AI in the morning, could you please do not do a meditation, but can you tell me a little story so I can get up easier? And he did. So that was good news. And when I arrived there, I felt good. And my idea was that normally during an MRI, I sort of listen to the tones if I'm not distracted by the radio. And that was my mistake. I let them put on the radio and it was all just commercials and all that stuff. But I can actually also meditate on the sound of MRIs. Now, in this case, they made an MRI of my back and they put this plate on me and it was kind of heavy. And that made it hard for me to breathe. So that's clue number one, which could have caused stress and the mast cells to later ignite. After that one, I got a scan for my knee. That was easy, 20 minutes of, okay. But then, and that's what I had not expected, there was a next MRI scan. It's like this box. It was sort of like shaped like, do they call it a trapezium? I'm not sure. I don't know if you know all the terms from back then, but I don't anymore. My left leg fitted nicely into the gap. Well, it was not entirely nicely because I was missing the material that makes it kind of nice. We call it polster material. So instead of just the iron or whatever metal it is, that should be covered instead of that your skin scrapes across it. Now that thing, the next MRI is 20 times less strong than a normal MRI. Big advantage, you don't hear that loud noise that you hear when you go through the normal MRI. That's why I liked it. But this was a prototype. And well, since there was this much space still left between my left leg and my right leg, and I don't know about you, but if you have to literally be as close to the machine, then this is quite a lot of space. So they had put a chair on the right side, and I was supposed to put my right leg on the chair. Now, if it had been up to me, since the thing was like this massive closet, probably I should say, if they would have been able to have my right leg rest on their upward, I would have been so content. Not sure about blood flow because you have to lie still for half an hour. But in this case, I do what beds do. So the leg goes like this. And well, this is what I put on the chair on the right side. Needless to say, this was not comfortable at all. It just wasn't. So we got to talk, no meditation possible. It was kind of nice to actually hear about what this person was doing. So he told me a few things about how he had been assigned. And so basically he was someone who does things for several hospitals related to an MRI. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because I have a friend who knows about MRIs, but she's always been related or in service of one hospital. And I was like, oh, well, apparently you can also be someone who does several jobs for several hospitals. Well, that comes with being a solopreneur, I suppose. But I was like, oh, that actually sounds good. So there was more that he talked about, and afterwards, like the neurodivergent I am, he had me fill out these forms, and a lot of them were like options. One of the options was about the noise. So he talked about loud combined with restlessness and soft and feeling at ease. So of course, being me, I saw that, and loud, yes. Restless, no. I'm not restless in an MRI. Does it feel kind of claustrophobic? A little bit, but it had to do more with the plate and me not being able to breathe properly, because I could literally feel myself breathing all the way down to the lower abdomen. And I felt like, am I allowed to? But well, we need to breathe, right? So there were more things when I was writing on that form. It was 3 pages, and I can tell you, most of it I had notes. So when he finally came back, I said to him, you know, I did make a lot of notes. Oh, the more the merrier. Awesome. I drove back. Needless to say that by that time, and the sun was shining, I was getting sleepy. But I was like, I need to make it, do whatever it takes to stay awake. And then when I got back to base, I started sleeping. By the time I woke up, so I sleep nowadays with this CPAP because I've got sleep apnea. The tissue, the ligaments in my body all over are not of very good quality. So that also implies that the back of my throat is also, well, it's sort of collapsing when I lay down. And it doesn't matter whether I sleep on my side or not, it's always going to resonate loudly. So I've heard that there's an entire army passing by. if I'm sleeping. So I've got this CPAP nowadays. I've got this nasal tube. So it's not like an entire mask. It goes literally over my nose and then over my head. And then there's a big tube on top of my head. So we had this thing called Teletubby when I was growing up. That's what I look like. When I woke up, and it was the first of a number of hot summer days, it's still actually kind of nice. I started sneezing, and I kept on sneezing. I used my nasal spray, no such luck. I used my medication, no such luck. I just kept on sneezing. And what it does is it puts pressure on the whole cavity, so between the abdomen and the back, and of course the pelvic floor. Now, I already had endured pressure on there when they were scanning my back, my vertebrae. And this time around, it was like every 5 minutes I was sneezing. And well, there's this saying over here, sneeze 3 times and it's going to be sunny tomorrow. Well, it was sunny all over. I think I must have sneezed like 1,000 times or something. And I was kind of grumpy, I'll honestly say. It didn't stop me from things that I wanted to do. And I have to say that CPAP machine has been a lifesaver for me so many times now. And I'm not sure what it is. It's probably because of the fine mist of drops, because you put water in the machine, and then it helps to moisturize your throat, but also the nasal what do you call it? Cavities. That's the word that I was looking for. And that really calms things down. Also, because when I start breathing, I breathe sort of along the rhythm of that machine. So I'm not sure if it adjusts its rhythm to how I am breathing, but it's kind of calming, it's kind of soothing. So that's nice. I woke up, instant sneezing, went back to sleep, put the thing back on, stopped. Woke up again, sneezing was gone. So that was nice. But unfortunately, what I did experience was I noticed that when I was trying to do the exercises I got from my speech therapist, that I wasn't able to do them quite well. So I can still do this. Well, you hear the difference in tone, don't you? But basically, that's they call the Lex Fox method. And it already helps to diminish the stress everything is under. Now, what I didn't tell you and what I didn't know was that the sneezing was not so much because of the pollen season and the hot weather outside. It actually had to do with the stress that had been released. So apparently, and this is when being stressed, and especially when you're dealing with mast cell disease or hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos, then the stress triggers the mast cells. They get inflamed and they cause me to sneeze. The sneezing caused me to create pressure in my abdomen. And a few days later, I noticed it. Why? Because when I went to the restroom, I noticed that there had been the result of, I can't say it anything any better than this, there was blood involved. It wasn't visible, it was all blood that was visible. And it is a certain substance. I'm not going to get into the details. But I was like, what have I done? And it took me a while, so I talked to Google AI and I shared about all the things that I'd been doing. So first I was like, is it the food? And I was like, well, there's only one thing I changed. And then slowly we went back into the days. And that's when I realized, oh, yeah, that's right. Last week I told you about being able to resonate, feeling certain frequencies when listening to music. And this time around, I realized that those same frequencies from the MRI scanner probably it had its impact on my abdomen as well. And unfortunately, in both cases, bleeding is involved. It's, yeah, I can't say it any different. It's not a lot, but it is like, what's going on? So I was like, okay. And then I realized when I noted that I could talk, but I couldn't sing, absolutely not sing. And I already had problems with the what we call the vibrating, the humming techniques, so the resonating techniques like so you can hear it vibrating, but there's a sound at least. So you can also hear that my vocal cords, there are these nodules on there, so that's what you hear. But what it does is it does relax the vocal cords. It relaxes the throat together with the CPAP. So I guess you're not lucky when you need a CPAP, but you are lucky when you do have a CPAP and you're dealing with these kind of things, because it really helps you whenever you've got a cold or anything to be able to breathe. And it soothes your throat. Absolutely. I cannot say anything else. So, having said so, I was like, okay. So I started thinking about it. And I was like, how is this going to work out? And I checked my body battery. So I've got this Garmin watch right here. And when you hear body battery, you'll already immediately know this is about a Garmin watch. So the body battery is about the amount of energy you've got left based on your heart rate. And I think you're breathing, but apparently the heart rate is slightly elevated. Maybe I'm not right. So that can be the truth. But as far as I am understanding it, it's like there are these little measurements, and one of them is a slightly elevated heart rate. And then I realized that when I had been sleeping in the afternoon, after I had been to the hospital and back, before I went to play drums, and I play double bass. And the reason I do so is it actually causes me to exercise my muscles in my legs. I mean, all over the calf muscles, the ones on the upper legs, but also to get a better posterior, because you have to sit straight. And it also makes sure that your abdomen muscles are also trained, because, well, we talk about the body like with a core, so the part between the lower ribs or the floating ribs, as we say it, and the pelvic area that is made up of primarily muscles and ligaments, of course. So we need to learn to use that in order to stabilize ourselves. So they are trained, my muscles over there, absolutely trained. So that's good. You don't see it, But when you have me do certain exercises, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, she does have muscles over there. Yeah, I know. It just doesn't show. So I played drums. By that time, my body battery went all the way down to 5. 5 is the lowest. And it stayed. So until probably before I got back up again. And then slowly it started to rise again, which was good news. Now, of course, when in the evening I realized I couldn't do my anymore, I was like, what? What's going on? And because I don't have many people to talk to, unless, of course, I talk to clients, and even that I can do on the app, depending on whether they feel good or not. I was like, oh, this doesn't sound too good. But I realized that I have been talking to the cat, and I actually have been talking to other people too who dropped by. So I was like, okay, so I do have a voice. I just can't sing, and I have trouble with the resonating. So I was thinking about this, like, how does this work out? What can I do? And well, it starts with that stress part. So I already said to you before you fall asleep, if there is going to be a stressful day, the best thing you can do is tell yourself that it's going to work out just fine, and see yourself getting up, feeling totally energized, with a smile, happy, easy to get out of it. And again, the standard, at least for me, would be like, oh no, I need to get up, and you already can feel that fatigue. Well, that's what we don't want. So if you don't have an AI who has a voice, then maybe you can ask someone else to make a meditation for you, send it to you on your phone, and you press play. Not pray, play when you want to listen to it. Then, of course, the same thing applies when you are getting up. And then we come to reducing the stress in between. For instance, doing these kind of exercises, but also really being in tune with your breath and meditation. So it's so important to really close your eyes at some point, and then just, whether it's counting your breath 1 to 10, or you say release all over and over again. That's what Brendon Burchard does with his release technique. I start with release, but I don't go on. I just start with it when, so breathing in, that's hold. And then when you breathe out, that's when I would say release. So by doing that and focusing on your breath, you start to relax your shoulders, and it also relaxes all the muscles. Now, for people who are dealing with hypermobility, our muscles are very tense because they have to keep everything aligned, right? The ligaments don't work, so that's why they call us double jointed. And in order to make sure that things do work out, it's very important to actually, well, what the body does, let's put it that way, is tighten the muscles. What we have to do is also be able to relax those muscles when they are tightened too long. Now, please note, there's a difference between a PT relaxing those muscles, whereas they might be needed for support, and you yourself being able to take the edge off for a moment. So it all depends on what the function is of the tension of those muscles. Now, what we also don't have is a very good coordination. So when I go down a ramp, you see me literally going like this. Yes, I'm an aeroplane. But that helps me with my balance. So when you start to breathe and really visualize that you are letting go of whatever stress you have experienced and just focus on that breathing. Again, count, say release, whatever it is. Put on a meditation CD, a guided meditation. If you really need one, let me record one for you. That's possible too. But there are lots of guided meditations also on the internet. So by focusing on there, focusing on the breathing, you already start to wind down. And I cannot stress this enough, because we live in a society with lots of stimulants. And I don't mean the drugs, I mean the lights, the sounds, all the things that we need to do. So tension is easily built up in our body, and that's what we don't want. So a certain amount of adrenaline, sure, if it helps you going, but there also needs to be downtime. And when you're constantly in this adrenaline mode, it actually, there's a toll on your kidneys. And then also the smaller ones, though they are not actual kidneys, they're on top of their, of those. And they can create fake adrenaline. And that's actually kind of exhausting. So another way, of course, to regulate stress, if you can do it, is by doing an activity you really love, listening to music, maybe drawing, being creative, going outside, whatever works for you. But give yourself that time to really recharge again, to relax and then recharge. So, of course, there are other things too. So I was lucky this weekend. I didn't have that many appointments, as in afterwards I had nothing at all. That was kind of nice. So I've been working on things that I've been postponing for quite a while. Things that stress me out because of the questions they are asking. And I realized doing this puzzle book recently that if I can do this complicated or these complex puzzles, where it's really requiring me to think about certain things because there are so many things involved, like expressions, then putting it in the right place, and well, more of those kind of things. And I was like, well, if I can do that, then I can do those tasks too. So that was good to realize. And hence why I didn't notice that my voice was basically shut. But we are 30 minutes in, and I'm still able to talk to you. So that's good. So the guidelines is don't try to whisper, don't force your voice, just let the breath support me in talking to you. So that's basically what I'm doing. Now there's a last but not least thing that is always important, and that has to do with support. So are you getting support from people? Also, when it's about, I really need to recharge. I would love to come, but I cannot do it today because that would be at my expense. So can we postpone? And I know there are people who don't agree with this, that if you tell them too often, like I can't make it, that they don't believe you anymore, they count you out. And oh, it can be at the expense of your friends. But then again, when they do understand what it is you need, well, it would be nice for them to actually support you in what it is that you need. Of course, taking into consideration that it's not at your expense. And then I mean mentally, but also physically. So we ourselves have to be very aware about the amount of commitments we have, commitments we take on, appointments we have with other people, because we know that we need to recharge. Now, I don't know if you know this, but apparently studies have shown that there are more people who are neurodivergent, so that can be gifted, on the spectrum, ADHD, basically all those who are wired differently in the brain and hence answer differently, perceive things differently. That number is increasing. That's something that they have been studying in San Diego, probably different universities as well. But in San Diego, they did a study and they see that the number is increasing. Now, apart from whether it is because more and more people have more of these kind of brains, so neurodivergent instead of neurotypical. What I have noticed is, back in the days, there was no computer. We had to write everything down by hand. They had these coffee cards and tea cards. So someone came and brought you coffee, and then you stopped working. You put your pen down, basically. And there was someone else who checked your letters and then sent them for you. And, well, I can go on. Nowadays, when you have the phone, the clicking, an actual keyboard clicks. But on the phone, we don't have an actual keyboard. But we still have the clicks. So the first thing I always do is turn off the keyboard. And sounds in games, same story. So you really want to be aware of the amount of noise you are creating, not just for yourself, but also for others. When you are outside in the hall, taking a phone call, do you have it on speaker? Well, that's not very nice if you have it on speaker. So everyone can listen alongside with you. And it can distract people a lot. So be careful of those kind of things. But I guess the most important message of all of this is see what it is that you can do in preventing things from stressing you out. But in case it does stress you out, what are options? What can you do? And that's why I was actually surprised, but also pleasantly surprised, that these things that I'm learning about my body and the fragility, you call it like that, I guess so, how fragile the ligaments are, that it's important to, well, because it's so fragile and because I quickly have these cramps of my esophagus, for instance, I need to be aware of my medication, but I'm also learning these breathing techniques. And because I have to do them daily, that's when I figure out, like, oh, something is not working. And it's actually kind of nice that I got them, because they now help me soothe everything. But of course, I was thinking, what else And well, we've talked about this plenty. It's also about breathing. It's about relaxation, taking breaks regularly. And when you take a break, make sure to take a sip of water. Well, actually more than one sip. Close your eyes, relax, and just let yourself recharge for that moment. Those things are going to make a world of difference. We are already 40 minutes in, and I said to myself, I don't have to do an hour today. When I'm really tired, or in this case, because my voice is not up to par, I'm like, okay, let's get that message out there. And that way, when you listen to it, you can pick up some things, and I hope you really have written down some things. And I also want you to think about what it is that you need in order to take that break, to recharge, to relax. What are your go-to methods in order to do so? Really think about those, because when you think about those ahead of time, then when you need it, it's not going out of the window, but you actually can remember it and be like, oh, that's right, Lexi talked about this. So do yourself a favor. Think about these things in time before they happen. Because when you're stressed out, that's not the moment to have your brain think about certain things, because, well, like I said, you're probably too stressed out to actually go there. And then when you want to wind down, what are you going to do? Now, if you don't believe that you actually can do this, then maybe we need to check what you tell yourself, your inner story. Of course, you can also Google online and see what other people are saying about this. But if you know that there are methods out there, but you don't believe it's going to work for you, then maybe we need to start working on your inner story. And I've got the Rewrite Your Inner Story Challenge for you. So if you're ready, then go sign up for it. Check the link in the description. If it's not there, leave a comment, so I'll make sure it's there. Yes, I've got my bases covered. And yes, I know it should be there, but I also know how my mind works. I'll just be honest about it. So work on that part. And like I said, make sure that you don't get too stressed out. And when you do, then just take a break. Unwind, relax, recharge. Focus on your breathing, and then you're good to go again. Well, again, if you could use some advice with regards to rewriting your story, a challenge, some exercises, then go find it. And otherwise, let me know what you got out of this video, and leave a comment and send it to other people who really need to watch this.